Rian never imagined his life would change the day he received a message from the Interworld Engineering Program. He had applied months ago, mostly out of curiosity and a tiny bit of hope. He didn't expect to be selected. Thousands of people from different human colonies applied every year, and only a handful were accepted. Still, when the letter came with his name on it, he had to read it 3 times before he actually believed it. For a long moment he just stood there, staring at the screen, wondering if someone was playing a joke on him. But it wasn't a joke. He really was chosen. The message explained that he would be sent to the ruling ship of the Atheron Empire, one of the oldest and strongest alien civilizations known to humans. His job would be simple in theory: assist their engineering teams, learn their methods, and share human techniques in return. It sounded like an honor, a chance to make history. But there was one line in the message that made his hands tremble. Direct supervision may involve the Queen. Everyone knew what that meant. The Queen of the Atheron was not just a ruler. She was a warrior, a strategist, someone who carried centuries of tradition on her shoulders. People said she had won battles without lifting a weapon. Her presence alone was enough. No human had ever worked directly under her guidance. Some humans hadn't even seen her in person. Rian didn't know whether he should feel excited or terrified. He told himself that he should be calm. But the truth was, he wasn't. Even on the day he boarded the transport ship, he could feel the nerves bouncing inside his stomach. The station workers wished him luck, and every time someone said, "You'll do great," he tried his best to smile. Inside, though, he kept thinking, what if I mess up? What if they think I'm not good enough? When the transport ship reached the Atheron flagship, Rian pressed his face slightly toward the window. The ship looked like a floating city. It wasn't built like human ships, which were blocky and metallic. This one looked carved from a single smooth material, glowing faintly with shifting colors. The closer they got, the more he wondered how humans ever thought they were advanced. The Atheron were on another level. Once the ship landed inside the docking bay, he stepped out and almost forgot to breathe. Everything around him was huge. The ceiling high above him had patterns carved into it that shimmered when the light hit them. Guards in elegant armor stood in rows, their eyes following every movement. Rian tried not to stare, but everything felt new and overwhelming. A tall Atheron officer approached him. His movements were slow and controlled, as if he had been trained to never rush. He introduced himself with a calm voice and welcomed Rian on behalf of the Queen. Rian nodded repeatedly, too many times, and the officer gave a tiny smile as if he found it slightly amusing. He was given a brief tour of the ship, but even after half an hour, Rian realized he couldn't remember most of it. He was too busy trying to understand their technology and avoid bumping into things. When they finally reached the engineering section, he met a group of Atheron technicians who looked at him with polite curiosity. Some offered a respectful nod. Others simply observed. He knew they weren't being rude, but the silence made him feel like he had to prove himself quickly. The officer explained that Rian's human engineering background matched well with their armor maintenance division. That caught his attention. Armor maintenance meant working on suits worn by Atheron warriors. He had heard stories about them: armor that responded to the wearer's energy, armor that adapted itself depending on the situation. To think he would be allowed near such technology made him swallow hard. Before he could ask anything, the officer said something Rian wasn't expecting. "You have been assigned to assist with the Queen's ceremonial battlesuit." Rian blinked. For a moment, he wondered if he misheard. But the officer continued speaking as if it were normal. Rian felt his palms grow warm. Of all the assignments he could receive, this was the one that carried the most pressure. If he messed up a regular warrior's armor, they might be annoyed or embarrassed. If he messed up the Queen's armor, he didn't even want to imagine it. The officer must have noticed his uneasiness, because he added, "You were chosen, because your work samples show exceptional precision. That is valued here." It was meant to reassure him, but it didn't help much. Still, he nodded, followed the group, and mentally repeated, "You can do this. Just stay calm." Later that day, he was called into a chamber larger than any workshop he had ever seen. The walls were decorated with smooth metal patterns, and the lighting was soft, creating a warm atmosphere. A few technicians were already inside, standing with perfect posture. When Rian entered, they all turned toward him at the same time. He gave a nervous little wave. No one waved back. One of them said politely, "Please wait. The Queen will arrive soon." Those words made his heart jump. He wasn't ready. He felt like someone had just pushed him onto a stage. He wiped his hands on his clothes, straightened his back, and tried to look serious. But inside, he felt anything but serious. He felt like someone pretending to be brave. Then he heard footsteps, soft, steady, echoing slightly as they entered the chamber. The Queen. Rian had seen images of her, but nothing compared to seeing her in person. She was tall, taller than any human he had met, but carried herself with such grace that her height didn't feel intimidating. Her armor, even without the chest plate, looked like something out of ancient stories, shining, smooth, and alive with faint light patterns that seemed to shift like breathing. Her gaze was calm, but sharp enough that Rian felt she could see every thought he had ever had. The technicians bowed in their traditional way, lowering their heads briefly. Rian copied them, but did it a little too quickly. When he straightened up, he saw that the Queen was looking directly at him. "Human technician," she said, her voice steady but gentle. "Welcome." He managed a soft, "Thank you," hoping his voice didn't sound too shaky. She walked toward the armor platform, and the technicians moved around her with practiced elegance. They removed the upper portion of her armor, placing it on a stand. Then one of them gestured for Rian to step forward. "This section needs adjustment," the technician said. "You are to fix the internal connectors." Rian nodded. His hands felt heavy, but he told himself he had trained for this. He approached the chest plate carefully, examining the mechanism. It was unlike anything humans had created. The parts were delicate, but beautifully engineered. He adjusted a small piece, then another, then reached for a connector near the center. He didn't realize how sensitive the area was just as he touched the inner panel. He heard a soft breath near his ear. "Careful," the Queen whispered. "That part's delicate." Rian froze. His eyes widened. He didn't even turn his head, afraid he had done something wrong. The technicians stopped moving. The entire chamber went silent, as if everyone had forgotten how to breathe. He slowly pulled his hand back. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't know." The Queen didn't look angry. Instead, she studied him with a calm expression. "You reacted with care," she said. "That is good." The silence in the room felt heavier now. The technicians exchanged glances, clearly surprised. The Queen rarely spoke in such a soft tone to anyone, especially not a newcomer. Rian wasn't sure if he should feel relieved or even more nervous. He swallowed and forced himself to continue the repair, this time moving more slowly. The Queen didn't speak again, but he could feel her watching him. It made him hyper-aware of every small mistake he might make. Still, after a few minutes, he finished the adjustment and stepped back. "It's complete," he said. One of the technicians tested the mechanism and nodded. "The alignment is perfect." Rian let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. The Queen gave a slight nod, a gesture of approval. "You may continue assisting us," she said. Those words, simple as they were, felt like a milestone. He didn't know what the others thought, but he saw the small shift in their eyes. A mix of surprise, curiosity, and maybe even a tiny bit of respect. When the Queen left the chamber, The technicians finally relaxed. One of them approached Rian and said, "It seems she trusts your hands." Rian didn't know what to say. He just stood there, letting the moment sink in. He had been terrified, unsure, overwhelmed, yet somehow he had passed the first test. He didn't know what the future would bring, but one thing was clear. The real story had just begun. Rian woke up the next morning, still replaying the moment in his mind. The Queen leaning slightly toward him, her voice soft, telling him to be careful. He kept asking himself if it really happened the way he remembered it. Maybe he imagined the kindness in her tone. Maybe it wasn't kindness at all. Maybe she just didn't want her armor damaged. He had no idea. All he knew was that everyone in the chamber reacted like they had witnessed something unusual. He didn't know if he should feel proud or embarrassed as he got ready for the day. He tried to calm his nerves, but his stomach still twisted with the same uncertainty he felt yesterday. He kept thinking, will today be the same? Will the technicians look at me differently? Will I have to face her again? The walk toward the engineering hall felt longer than usual. He noticed a few Atheron guards looking at him with a little more attention than before. Not hostile, but definitely curious. One of them tilted his head slightly, as if evaluating him. Rian smiled awkwardly and kept walking. When he entered the hall, the technicians paused for a moment. They weren't unfriendly, just more attentive than the day before. One of them, a tall Atheron with silver markings across his cheeks, approached him. "You did well yesterday," he said in a calm voice. The Queen does not speak softly often. Rian didn't know whether he should thank him or pretend he didn't understand the meaning behind those words. I was just doing my job," he said. The technician gave a small nod, as if accepting that answer, but Rian could tell the man still found the whole situation interesting. The morning passed quietly. Rian worked on training models to understand the alien technology better. Their systems were a blend of organic and mechanical components. Sometimes the panels felt warm, almost alive. He tried to focus on learning, but his mind kept drifting toward the Queen. By noon, the door to the hall opened, and everyone immediately straightened. The Queen entered again, this time wearing her full armor except for the chest plate. She walked with that same confidence, every step controlled, every movement precise. The moment her eyes moved over the room, everyone bowed. Rian bowed too, but his heart felt like it bounced inside his chest. The lead technician stepped forward. "Your armor adjustments will continue today." The Queen nodded. "Let the human assist again." Rian almost choked on air. He felt every pair of eyes turn toward him. Some looked confused. Others seemed surprised. The Queen choosing him 2 days in a row? That was definitely not normal. He wasn't sure whether this was a test, a compliment, or a coincidence. One technician whispered softly, "She chose you again." Interesting. Rian tried not to show how nervous he felt. His hands were suddenly warm, and he had the urge to wipe them on his clothes, but he resisted. He stepped forward with the rest of the team, telling himself the same thing as yesterday. Just do your job. Don't overthink. The armor rested on the platform, glowing faintly with soft blue light. It looked delicate, yet strong, like something crafted by a civilization that had learned to merge technology with art. One technician explained the task. "You will check the internal alignment." A system reported a fluctuation. Rian nodded and took a small diagnostic tool. He leaned forward to open the inner panel, careful not to touch anything unnecessary. The memory of yesterday's warning echoed in his mind. He moved slowly, double-checking each connector before touching it. Behind him, he sensed the Queen watching. He tried not to let it distract him, but then something unexpected happened. The moment he touched a specific part of the internal frame, the lights in the room dimmed slightly. The armor glowed brighter, reacting to his touch. A faint sound, almost like a soft hum, vibrated through the air. The technicians froze. Rian stepped back in surprise. I didn't do anything wrong, did I? The lead technician frowned. This reaction, it only happens when the armor recognizes the touch as stable. Rian blinked. Recognizes? The Queen stepped closer. My armor is connected to my energy. Very few can interact with it without causing resistance. Her eyes watched him closely, not unkind, but deeply observant. You did not cause resistance, she added. Rian blinked again, unsure how to respond. His mind raced with thoughts. Was this good? Was it bad? Was it normal for humans to interact with alien armor in this way? The technicians whispered among themselves. Rian couldn't hear everything, but he caught phrases like unusual, impossible, and but he is human. He felt slightly overwhelmed. The Queen raised her hand, and the room instantly went silent. She stepped closer to the armor and examined the open panel. Continue, she said to Rian. You did not harm it. Her voice was calm, almost reassuring. Rian nodded slowly and leaned forward again. The hum returned the moment his hand approached the frame, but this time he didn't jump away. He exhaled and continued working. The more he adjusted the connectors, the more the armor settled into a steady glow. He finished tightening the last piece and stepped back. It's done, he said quietly. The lead technician checked the readings. The glowing panel showed a stable pattern. It is perfect, he said, clearly impressed. Before Rian could feel relieved, a soft voice spoke. Well done, human. Rian turned his head slightly. The Queen was looking directly at him. Her expression wasn't cold or distant. It held something else, respect, maybe, or curiosity, or both. The room went completely silent. Even the technicians looked alarmed. None of them expected that kind of approval from her. The Queen didn't say anything more. She simply lifted her armor piece, placed it back on herself with the help of her attendants, and prepared to leave. But as she took one step forward, she paused and glanced over her shoulder right at Rian. You have steady hands, she said. Do not doubt them. Then she walked out of the hall. Rian stood frozen in place. He didn't know how long he stayed like that, but the technicians slowly returned to their work, though many kept looking at him with new curiosity. One of them approached him. Do you understand what happened? Rian shook his head slightly. Not really. The Queen's armor does not accept unfamiliar energy easily, the technician said. Yesterday, she warned you. Today, it reacted to you. So, is that good? The technician paused. It is rare. Rian wasn't sure how to feel. Rare could mean special. Rare could also mean dangerous. Rare could mean something he wasn't prepared for. He sat down on a nearby bench, letting everything sink in. He felt exhausted, but not in a bad way. More like his mind had run a marathon while his body stood in one place. After some time, another technician walked by and said, Whatever this is, the Queen seems to trust you. Trust. That word echoed through Rian's thoughts. He wasn't sure if he had earned trust or simply stumbled into a situation he didn't fully understand. But either way, something had changed. The Queen wasn't just a distant ruler anymore. She had spoken to him not once, but twice. And each time the whole room reacted like they were seeing history happen. That evening, as he walked through the long corridors of the ship, a few Atheron workers nodded him respectfully, something they hadn't done the day before. He didn't know if this attention was good or bad, but he couldn't deny one thing. His life had taken a direction he never expected. He thought this program would be about learning engineering skills. Instead, he had somehow become part of a story he never asked for one, that everyone around him was watching closely. As he reached his room and closed the door behind him. He leaned against the wall and exhaled. Day 2, he whispered to himself. And everything is already different. He had no idea that things would become even more complicated very soon. Rian woke up the next day with a strange mix of feelings, pride, confusion, and a quiet worry that he tried his best to ignore. He sat on the edge of his bed for a long time, trying to understand everything that had happened in the last 2 days. He wasn't someone used to attention. Back home, he was just another technician who liked to work in silence. No one stared at him. No one whispered when he walked by. And no queen ever spoke to him in a soft voice. But on this alien flagship, things were different. Every small moment felt important. As he got ready, he kept replaying the memory of the armor, reacting to him, the faint glow, the soft hum, the way the room fell silent. It didn't feel real. He almost wondered if he had imagined parts of it, but the shocked faces of the other technicians were too clear in his memory. He walked through the long corridors toward the engineering hall, and the looks he received were noticeably different today. Some Atheron workers nodded politely. Others simply watched him pass by, their eyes filled with quiet curiosity. None of it seemed hostile, but it still made his stomach twist. He reached the hall and stepped inside. A few technicians were already working. They acknowledged him with simple greetings, something they hadn't really done on the first day. One of them approached him, a middle-aged Atheron with dark curved markings across his arms. "The Queen spoke of you this morning," he said calmly. Rian almost dropped the tool he was holding. "She spoke of me?" The technician nodded. "She asked if the human was prepared for further work." Rian blinked rapidly. "She said it like that? The human?" "Yes," the technician said, "but the Queen only speaks the way tradition allows. Do not misunderstand. Her asking for you specifically is unusual." Unusual seemed to be the theme of Rian's life now. Before he could reply, the doors opened and the Queen entered. Like always, the room shifted into a respectful silence. Rian felt his heartbeat instantly speed up. She walked with the same quiet authority, every step firm but graceful. Her chest plate was attached today, but she carried a small armor panel in her hand. She didn't address the room first. She walked straight toward Rian. He hadn't been prepared for that. The technician stepped aside, giving her space. Rian stood up so quickly that his knee hit the workbench. He muttered a small "sorry" under his breath, not sure if he said it to the Queen or the bench. "Human," she said gently, "I require your assistance." Her tone wasn't cold or formal today. It felt almost familiar, as if she had already decided he was capable. "Yes, of course," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "What do you need me to do?" She handed him the panel, and he immediately felt a light vibration through it, like a soft heartbeat. It was another part of her armor, though different from the one he worked on before. The inside looked like a maze of glowing lines and small connectors. "It is unstable," she said. "The technicians believe your touch may stabilize it." Rian wasn't sure if he should feel honored or terrified. He examined the inner parts carefully. He could see a section flickering weakly. Before he made any adjustments, he glanced up at her. "Is it okay if I open the lower seal?" he asked. She nodded. "Do what you must." Everyone in the room watched him closely. The pressure was heavy, but he forced himself to breathe slowly. He opened the seal and reached inside. The moment his fingers touched the connector, the panel responded, soft light, faint hum, steady glow. Just like before. The technicians exchanged silent looks. The Queen stepped a little closer. "You see?" One technician whispered to another. "It responds to him." Rian tried to ignore the attention. He focused on the flickering part, tightened a small ring, and adjusted the alignment. A panel stabilized completely. "It's done," he said quietly. The Queen took the panel back, examining it with sharp eyes. She brushed her fingers across the surface. The glow remained perfectly steady. She looked at Rian again. "You have a steady mind as well," she said. He felt heat rising in his cheeks. He wasn't sure why her words affected him so much, but they did. Maybe because no one had ever complimented him in such a serious tone. The other technicians began working again, but Rian could feel the shift in the room. They didn't look at him as a normal visitor anymore. They looked at him like someone important, even if he didn't feel important at all. The Queen didn't leave immediately. Instead, she walked around the workshop, checking various stations. She wasn't a ruler who simply sat on a throne. She watched her workers, spoke with them, and helped solve problems. Rian noticed how they stood straighter when she approached, but didn't seem afraid of her. When she eventually walked back toward the exit, she paused next to Rian. "You may be called again," she said. "Remain prepared." He nodded. "I will." She gave a slight nod in return and left the hall. As soon as the doors closed, the room erupted with quiet conversations. A younger technician approached Rian with wide eyes. "She really likes your work." Rian shook his head quickly. "No, I don't think it's she does," the technician insisted. "She has never requested a helper 2 days in a row. Now 3. It's not personal," another technician added. "It is connection. The armor accepts him." "That doesn't make sense," Rian said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm just a human technician." "That," the older technician replied, "is why it surprises us." The rest of the day felt strange. The technicians treated him like someone special. They included him in discussions, asked for his opinion, and explained cultural things he didn't understand. He appreciated it, but it also made him feel pressured. He didn't want to be someone who stood out. He wanted to blend in, do his work, and learn quietly. But blending in wasn't possible anymore. Later in the afternoon, Rian was called to a meeting room. He didn't know who would be there, but when the door opened, he was surprised to see a member of the Royal Advisory Group waiting for him. The advisor spoke calmly. "The Queen respects precision. She sees it in you." Rian didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to compliments, especially not from alien advisors dressed in royal symbols. "She has asked for daily reports on your progress," the advisor continued. "This is not common." "Why?" Rian asked before he could stop himself. The advisor studied him. "Perhaps she is curious. Or perhaps she sees potential." Potential. That word felt heavy on his shoulders. He returned to his quarters late, feeling drained. He lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the day. He didn't know what the Queen wanted from him. He didn't know if this attention would help him or put him in danger. But he couldn't deny one thing. He was becoming part of something deeper. That night, a soft notification flashed on his device. A message. He expected it to be from one of the technicians. But it wasn't. It was from the Royal Communication Channel. "Report to the upper chamber tomorrow morning. Alone." Signed, the Queen. Rian sat up straight. Alone? The Queen wanted to see him privately? His heart pounded. He wasn't sure if he was excited or terrified, or both at the same time. He placed the device on the table, lay back down, and whispered to himself, "I don't know what's happening, but I guess I'll find out tomorrow." And with that thought, he closed his eyes, knowing that his life was about to change again. Rian barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined the Queen standing in the upper chamber, waiting for him. He wasn't sure what she wanted from him. Maybe she needed more work done on her armor. Or maybe this was some kind of evaluation. Or maybe, though, he hoped not, he had done something wrong without realizing it. By morning, His head felt heavy from overthinking, but he forced himself to get ready. When he left his room, the corridors were quieter than usual. Only a few Atheron guards passed by, and even they glanced at him like they knew something he didn't. He reached the lift that led to the upper chamber. It was guarded by 2 soldiers wearing polished armor. When they saw him step forward, they exchanged a quick look. "State your purpose," one said. Rian swallowed nervously. I was called by the Queen. I have a message." The guard checked a device on his wrist, nodded, and said, "You may enter." The lift opened with a soft sound. Rian stepped in, and the doors closed behind him. The lift rose quickly so silently that he couldn't even feel movement. When it stopped, the doors opened into a wide hallway filled with warm light and tall, curved structures that almost looked like glowing trees. At the end of the hallway stood the Queen. She wasn't wearing full armor today. Only part of her ceremonial suit rested on her shoulders, leaving the rest of her outfit light and simple. She looked less intimidating, but still every bit as powerful. When she turned toward him, Rian felt his breath catch for a moment. There was something different in her expression, not cold, not formal, almost thoughtful. "You came," she said, her voice calm. Rian nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty. You may speak freely. No titles are needed here." That surprised him. He didn't know if he should relax or feel even more on edge. He walked closer, stopping a respectful distance away. "You asked for me." "I did." She stepped forward slightly. "Yesterday, my advisors told me something interesting. They said my armor reacts to your touch alone. They said the energy you carry is compatible with my systems." "I don't really understand why," Rian said honestly. "I'm not special. You are steady," she interrupted. Rian blinked, unsure how to reply. She continued, "Since the beginning of my rule, only warriors from my own people have been able to assist with my armor. But you handle the pieces as if you have done so for years. The armor accepts you." Rian lowered his gaze, unsure how to process that. The Queen stepped closer, stopping only a few steps away from him. "Do you fear me?" she asked softly. He looked up slowly. Her tone wasn't demanding. It wasn't meant to intimidate. She genuinely wanted to know. "I did at first," he said honestly, "but not anymore." A faint expression, almost like a small smile, touched her eyes. "Good." She turned slightly and motioned toward a platform in the center of the room. Her full armor rested there, glowing faintly. "I need it to be adjusted, but I wanted you to see it here, where there is peace. The hall below is crowded, noisy, distracting." Rian nodded and walked toward the platform. He wasn't nervous this time, not as much as before, at least. Instead, he felt a strange sense of responsibility. Like this was no longer just work. It meant something. He touched the first connector, and the armor reacted instantly with a steady glow. The Queen watched him in silence. No guards, no technicians. Just the 2 of them in a quiet chamber high above the rest of the ship. As he worked, she spoke again. "You have seen how my people look at you now." Rian nodded. "Yes, a little. They are confused," she said. "Some are curious. Some are cautious. A few are unsettled." He paused his work briefly. "Because of me?" "No," she said. "Because change is unsettling." He didn't fully understand, but he listened. She added, "For years, my people saw themselves as separate from humans, stronger, superior, but you challenged that without trying." "I really didn't mean to challenge anything," Rian said quietly. "That," she replied, "is why it works." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Rian continued adjusting the armor, making sure not to disturb the delicate inner mechanisms. Then she asked, "Do you know why I whispered to you that first day?" Rian froze for a second. He felt his heartbeat skip. He had replayed that moment 100 times, but he never expected her to bring it up. "No," he admitted. "I still don't know." She stepped closer, her voice low and steady. "Because you treated the armor with care, not fear or arrogance. You respected its design, and you moved slowly. My people rush. Humans often rush. But you did not." Rian took a quiet breath. "I didn't want to break anything." "That is exactly why you didn't," she said. He didn't know what to say to that, so he focused on the last adjustment. When he tightened the final piece, the armor glowed brighter and then returned to normal. "It's complete," he said. The Queen stepped forward and examined it. She brushed her fingers along the surface. The glow remained perfectly steady. "You have done it again," she said. "Flawless." Rian felt a wave of relief. "Come," the Queen said. He followed her to a balcony made of transparent material overlooking the entire ship. From there, he could see the glowing patterns on the floor below, the workers moving around like small dots, and the endless stars outside the ship. The Queen stood beside him. "This fleet will soon travel to a nearby system for a public ceremony," she said. "During the ceremony, all eyes will be on me, and on the armor you repaired." Rian swallowed. I hope it holds up." "It will," she said confidently, "because your hand left its mark on it." A gentle silence filled the air. "Rian," she said quietly. It was the first time she said his name. He turned his head slightly. "Yes?" "You may not understand the meaning of what you have done," she said. "But know this, you have earned my trust, and through me, the respect of those who follow me." Rian felt his chest tighten with emotion. He wasn't used to praise, especially not from someone of her status. "I'm just trying to do good work," he said softly. "And that," she said, "is why your work matters." The next day came faster than he expected. The ship traveled to a nearby system where thousands of Atheron citizens gathered to see their queen's ceremonial appearance. Rian stood with the technicians behind the main stage. He watched as the queen walked forward, her armor glowing beautifully under the lights. The crowd cheered, their voices echoing through the huge chamber. But then something changed. The lights flickered, and a part of the platform shifted unexpectedly, affecting her armor's energy flow. The technicians panicked. "It's destabilizing, she could fall." Someone shouted. Rian didn't think. His body moved before his mind could catch up. He ran toward her, dodging guards who shouted in surprise. He reached her side, placed his hand on the unstable part of the armor, and tightened the internal lock he had memorized. The armor steadied instantly. The entire chamber went silent. The Queen looked down at him, not with surprise, but with certainty, as if she already knew he would step forward. She raised her hand and addressed the crowd. "This human," she said, her voice strong, "has the hands of a guardian." The hall erupted in approval, louder than anything Rian had ever heard. After the ceremony, when they returned to the ship, the Queen walked beside him. "You were brave today," she said. I didn't want anything to happen to you," he replied quietly. She looked at him with steady eyes. "Then remember this. My court was silent the first time you touched my armor. Today they cheered because you touched it again." Rian didn't know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing for sure. The whispered warning on the first day wasn't just about fragile armor. It was the beginning of a trust that no one expected, maybe not even the Queen herself. And now he walked forward, knowing he had earned a place in a world that once felt far away from his own.